Hello again. I think that we would all of us agree that men tend, on the whole, to be more aggressive than women and less likely to seek compromise and accommodation. Qualities such as stubbornness and a desire to fight no matter what are not always desirable, of course, and testosterone fueled confrontation has certainly caused an awful lot of problems in the history of the world. Think wars and massacres and so on, which are all carried out by men rather than women. I think that a little less violence and aggression in the world might be no bad thing in general. It is certainly noticed that when women are introduced to the scene, men behave differently. A room full of nothing but men will have a very different atmosphere from one which contains a sizable number of women. It effectively, the women have a softening influence. This can be a good thing, of course, because it can sometimes mean that discussion is less acrimonious and the men moderate their conduct because of the presence of women. I seriously doubt that I've said anything controversial so far, merely described the situation as it exists. Men's competitive spirit and desire to dominate and succeed at all costs can be something of a scourge. Of course, it can also be a good thing, a driving force which means that a company or team gets on and makes more rapid advances than its competitors. The male drive for winning can be harnessed as a power for good. The problem comes, though, when we are talking about organisations which exist to enforce their will upon others against their wishes. I'm thinking now of things like armies and police forces. The police in Britain fight crime and they maintain the peace. It is no good changing their name to the police service. They still need to be a force. This is because criminals, whether they are muggers or terrorists or even burglars, tend to be pretty careless about social norms and will do whatever it takes to achieve their ends. The only thing which such people understand and ultimately respect and will be deterred by is force. It is pointless trying to understand them, to work out why they are stabbing and shooting people, or breaking into our homes and shitting on the floor. You must show them that you are stronger and more ruthless than they are, and that the game is not worth the candle. What is happening in Britain is that the police have been, in effect, feminised. The aim is to have half of all police officers as women, and already there are accelerated promotions in order to get women into very senior positions. Now, this is absolutely fine if the purpose of the police were to promote homosexuality or dance at West Indian carnivals, but it's not quite so useful when tough decisions have to be made about fighting. It is the fighting part which many of us want to see. Not fighting against upsetting posts on Facebook or Twitter, but rather fighting against the people who make the lives of ordinary citizens a misery. A fight against the people who are discharging firearms in the street, those who are stabbing folk or planting bombs, against the people who smash our cars or steal things or break into our homes. We want to see the police tackling criminals, in other words, rather than fooling around making a nuisance of themselves to law-abiding folk. I believe that women are not suited to spearhead such a campaign precisely because it would mean being tough and uncompromising, not relying upon reason and consensus, but rather using brute force in what would be, in essence, a war against crime. Women are better at sympathising with the victims of crime, of that I have no doubt, but when it comes to ordering men to kick down doors and drag people out into the street and chuck them in the back of police vans, I think I'd sooner have a man in charge. I need hardly remind English viewers that appointing a lesbian as Commissioner of Police for the metropolis might have played well enough for readers of The Guardian, but it was a catastrophe for the ordinary law-abiding citizens of London. She was worse than useless. Much the same applies to the armed forces, of course. Physical fitness tests are being progressively relaxed on the grounds that you can't expect women to keep up with men when it comes to carrying heavy equipment on the battlefield. And just as with the police, there's a desire to have half the army made up of women. This is an ideological aim rather than a tactical decision. Just as in the police, women are being promoted rapidly so that it looks as though the armed forces are more balanced. The implications for the efficiency of the army are even more serious than for the police because armies often have to take very awful decisions about killing lots of people. If it came to a war, would viewers rather have a man in charge of deciding when to open fire with artillery or bomb a town? Or would they prefer to have a woman choosing the course of action? The desire for compromise is great under some circumstances, but can be a very bad thing under others. War times and serious policing are, I think, best left to men.